we got a couple of Last of Us faction/multiplayer games details this last week or so. And I don't know, man. Okay, cool. So the big thing about it is, let me pull it up here, is we got some concept art for the multiplayer game. We are pulling from Wario64's Twitter for this. And you can see it on screen. We've got two guys hanging out in a, rundown Last of Us world. Looks like shit's fucked up. Big yacht boat or something. Could be an area in a map. I don't know if we're doing... This is cool. Great. Thank you for providing for us this stuff. What is the game? What is it? Is it a battle royale? Is it a Division clone? Is it... What is this game? Is it a Rainbow Six inspired game? What is it?
You see, the thing is, they seem to be really dead set on trying to create a new multiplayer experience, not just like a typical one. So I would like to say kind of like a what do you call it? Escape from Tarkov, where it's a lot more open world. You're trying to achieve a certain objective of some kind within the world against other players. Maybe that objective is different. I don't know. I don't believe Tarkov does that. I'm just implying that sounds like something Naughty Dog would do for their multiplayer thing. Because with the Last of Us, what they did was they made the whole faction system be a thing. You collect supplies from dead enemies, and you have to get enough each game. And if you don't, well, your survivors are going to start dying. And it's like there's this whole survival aspect to it, but not one that's really requiring a lot of oversight. Like, it's not micromanaging things. You're not trying to build your actual community. Maybe they could do something like that on a grander scale, doing those things, or maybe they'll go a completely different route with it. But I can't see it doing something that the Division has been doing for years now, or just doing another battle royale game in a industry that keeps on getting those. I think Naughty Dog is intelligent enough in that space to see how things are going and say, we could try and do something new that'll make people jump on this game, even if they're not Last of Us fans. So I trust that they can make something good, based off how good the Last of Us multiplayer game was, as limited of attention it got from the developers. Just going wholesale into something like this, I think will yield a really good product.
I mean, I'm hoping so. They've said before that they do still have a narrative focus on this, so there will be quest lines or characters that you're seeing, cutscenes that play. As you go back to base after a match or something. Will there even be matches is my question. Like, the reason I bring Division up is because I think it's a pretty easy to translate the world of The Last of Us into the design aspects of the Division. You think of the quarantine zones in the Division where, everyone's hanging out and having a good time, and it's a PvE world until you get into that quarantine zone. And then suddenly, you're stabbing each other in the back, and you're, money grubbing for resources and so forth. That's so clearly, to me, is yearning for The Last of Us, the world of The Last of Us and so forth. I want to, like, when they say narrative focus, does that mean we're going to see characters from the games? Is Tommy in this game? Is Ellie in this game? Who's in this game? Is there people in this game that we know? Or are they just mouthpieces for your quest lines? Like, what does that matter? Does it have actual narrative weight in a strange amalgamation of multiplayer meets narrative that we've seen in some attempts in the past, but never like a full-blown thing? You mentioned like maybe some base building stuff, bringing resources back. I think that would play very well to the world of The Last of Us, and I think that'd be really interesting and fun. I just have questions. Do we have our own little like villages, and we can develop and customize these villages in the ways we want? I don't think these things are going to happen, but Naughty Dog, you've been so sparse with details that I'm fucking tired of talking about this game without knowing what the fuck it is.
And I think in that regard, they could just say something more in depth. They don't have to do this whole big showcase thing, which seems like what they're leading up to doing, to show you what they're going to offer. They could just give us some details. But, I mean, it seems like that's what's going to happen soon, so you won't have to wait much longer.
Anyways, they also came out and said Last of Us franchise has sold more than 37 million copies as of December 2022. Good for them. Oh, there's a blog post. Let me check the blog post here. Connor Stevens. Anything else we were missing this year? I think Neil Druckmann said something, but I don't care.
What? You don't care?
No, I don't. Tell me what the fucking game is. Oh, that's what it was. It was he left the door open for a possible Last of Us 3, but I still say Last of Us 3 is a very long way away.
If it even comes, but we probably will.
just more concept art and shit. Like, I just don't care about this shit, you know?
Mhm.
Like, show me a trailer, show me a gameplay, give me a title. The title will tell me a lot.
The
Is
Last
it
of Us
called
2 multiplayer. That'd be so funny.
No, yeah, you know. However, I guess I'll say this: 37 million copies sold for The Last of Us, having 2 main entries into the game, 4 releases in total if you count the original game, the remaster, the remake, and part 2. Those are really good numbers for a game that has 2 entries into the franchise.
You know what? This is not what's going to happen at all. But what if this Last of Us multiplayer game is branded as The Last of Us Part 3? And that's how they weave the narrative into the multiplayer aspects somehow. Possibly be a Bungie like game.
I
like
think
Destiny.
that's a marketing failure. Like,
Yeah.
because when you say Last of Us Part 3, people are expecting a continuation of Ellie's story, or people are expecting a continuation, I guess, of Abby's story, or something like that. So people would expect your typical Naughty Dog experience from that. This, I think, it's just so clearly Last of Us with a subtitle. The Last of Us multiplayer, or like the Last of Us factions, or the Last of Us survival, Last of Us quarantine. I don't fucking know, something like that.
Whatever, more likely is the case.
Probably not quarantine off the back of the pandemic, but you understand what I'm saying here.
No, I don't know.
Shut the fuck up.
How do you respond to that?
Connor, is there anything else you want to add about The Last of Us here?
Not really. I mean, I'm excited for what it can hold, but as you said before, they're not giving us details, and they can, but they haven't. So it's a thing I'm hopeful for, but definitely can fall flat.
And then, just as a reminder, we're going to be doing weekly reviews of every Last of Us HBO episode that comes out starting next week. So keep an eye out for that. It will go live as soon as we record it, and we will be recording it live over at twitch.tv/2pennygames. So please join us for that every episode. You got plenty of time, either Saturday night or Sunday morning. Watch that episode. Come back to us in the evening and talk about it with us. It'll be more. We'll be more able to like talk to the chat and read the chat and so forth for that, as opposed to say the Piggy Bank or the Gamescast, where we're focused on developing a product. I'd like to see what the people's opinions are. How are they feeling? What is the temperature on the show as it develops, and so forth. Connor, are you excited about this show? I haven't checked in with you in a while.
Yeah.
Ever since the trailers and stuff have come out. Like, what is your feeling on the show right now?
Very neutral on it.
Oh, yeah?
I mean, because I won't lie, I had some kind of issue with it recently. I hadn't been paying attention to the interviews or what the creators have said or whatnot, but some have just fallen in my lap. And 2 things of note. One of which was that one of the lead writers basically said a really stupid comment about how...
Oh, I don't give a fuck about this.
Oh, but it is pretty... Yeah, I know. Where basically, if you hadn't seen it, what he said was... He basically made it seem like this show is on a different level than video games. Did the classic thing of like, well, video games are one thing, and it's kind of better when it's real people or something like that, as if they're not actually fictional characters. It's not indicative of whether the writing's going to be good or not, but just the mindset of one of the main writers having that is just pretty stupid.
It was clear that, well, he was also bigging up The Last of Us of like, oh, The Last of Us is grounded and real and you care about the characters, as if like a character-based story of value had never been told in the video game industry since its inception. I think he even quoted like, you're not just jumping on turtles or whatever. And I'm like, oh yeah, video games. Mario came out in the 90s, and then we didn't have another one until The Last of Us. Like,
I remember the turtles, and you jump on them and they go flying.
It's just it's a quote from someone in an interview that he was just running he was just giving an answer to whatever question they were asking or whatever the fuck, and he just he didn't know, he's not a gamer. He didn't have the context of gaming and where gaming's been and where gaming had the ability to go past Super Mario Brothers. So I think clearly it was an ignorant statement. It was a statement bred of ignorance. But I think it's a matter of like, yo, like, did you play video games? Like, like, and this is why I kind of hope that adaptation works, that this adaptation works, because we saw the clear success from the Witcher Netflix show to the Witcher 3 Wild Hunt, where they got a huge boost in sales and stuff. That's why they did the Last of Us remake, so that they could get some of that. Mario, in some way, is going to get that same type of boost when that movie comes out and so forth. And you just kind of always see like a trending upward swing of sales with the success of a good adaptation and product,
Mm-hmm.
which means television is more accessible than a video game to people who didn't grow up with video games. Like they everyone watches TV, not everyone plays video games.
Mm-hmm.
When they watch something and they enjoy it and they want to know more about it, they want to get invested in the world and see, where it came from and so forth. That's great. That invites people in, that broadens the horizons, that makes video games bigger and better as we go on. So, and it allows us to incorporate new ideas and get better adaptations of these works so that, we can continue living in these worlds outside of their own medium.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, that shit was stupid. Basically, all that to say that the dude was talking out the side of his mouth when he shouldn't.
The other thing, though, this is way more of a nuanced issue, if you could call it that, though I understand people that would take issue with it, which is that they kind of seem to be obviously basing it off Last of Us. The game is called The Last of Us, The Last of Us. So you got Joel.
It's the story of Joel and Ellie.
Yeah. It is, yeah, exactly. Now, with that story, from what I've what I come to understand from the one article that I read of an interview, was that they seem to have a very strong desire to want to make the characters themselves not be like the original Joel and Ellie and have a completely new spin on the characters, which, I saw some people having an issue with because it kind of defeats the purpose of wanting to make a video game adaptation by changing how a character acts in a video game. In the television or movie adaptation of said video game, which leaves you with the question of, like, well, why don't you just make something different if you're just going to change a pre-established character and how they act and their personality to be, why not just make a new character in that way, in that regard?
I mean, yes, that sentiment, I agree. Mm-hmm. I don't know where you're pulling this from.
It was like it started when it was interviewing the actress for Ellie. I can't remember her name, but she was
Bella Ramsey.
Yeah, she was advised to not play the game, which I get from like an acting perspective. Like, oh, you don't want to be, too much like Ellie, like exactly verbatim in every single way.
You don't want to replicate. You want to make it fresh and new and exciting and so forth.
Yeah, it does. But it seems weird to be saying, despite that, oh, don't play the game. Don't play the thing that this is based off of. As if it's this, trying to treat it as if it's its own unique individual thing and not an adaptation of a pre-established IP. Which once again brings up the question of, why are you making something based off a story that's already been told while changing those characters when you can just make a new story to make it more interesting? Because Last of Us is a big world, and we keep getting the Joel and Ellie stuff.
Oh, okay. I mean, I see what you're saying. I just think it's a moot point, because if we look to just exactly replicate that limits creativity and it limits ideas, and it puts a box on what we're able to do. I don't know where you're getting this from. Everything I've seen, I did see the don't play the game thing or whatever, but like everything I've seen from trailers and interviews and quotes and so forth getting thrown around, because my timeline is obsessed with this fucking shit. Even though I don't really care that much. Like, I'm interested in the show. I want to watch the show. I'm excited about the show because the trailers have looked fantastic. But everything I've seen is just, we're getting the Last of Us story again, but expanded.
Definitely said that with the Bill stuff, but
and even shortly the short sequences that we've seen of Bella, where we see her speak and do things. She's Ellie. She's like, from the, like, there's one clip in particular where like she's like mocking whoever she's with, and she's like pretending to sound like a clicker or some shit.
Yeah.
And it's totally like an out of pocket joke that you should not say, and it's totally 100% Ellie. Like, that's Ellie. So yeah, I don't know what you read or if you're just calling that, but like, it
just gives me it's not like this is one of those things where I'm like, it's gonna be bad. It's just already messing up, but it does say like, okay, this could be bad. It could be averagely written. It could be poorly written. It could be well written. It's kind of up in the air. And that always is the case with any kind of adaptation of a video game. It's why it's become better in recent years, like things like Arcane, Cyberpunk Edge Runners, the Cuphead show. I mean, that was all just last year. So obviously it's not so much like it was before, where it's like a video game adaptation, it's going to be bad. Though, in the live action sphere, we definitely haven't gotten a lot of those good adaptations of video game properties. And that could fall into the same pit hole. They could just make that mistake again, but they could not. And this is one of those games that has a higher chance than, let's say, Warcraft of being good.
Yeah. I mean, I think we are now in an era where you can't just automatically assume an adaptation from a video game is going to be bad. You can't just assume that anymore. Like, you can make a qualified case for a lot of different adaptations that we've seen in recent years. Witcher, Sonic the Hedgehog, Uncharted had elements, but I'd like to see it be a little better. And then, you bring up Arcane and Cyberpunk, which I haven't seen either of those shows, but you have, and the consensus seems to be that they're phenomenal. So yeah, it's we're getting there. We're getting there, and I think it'll be. We're damn near to the point to where it's on the same level of any other adaptation. You just have to pick your property right. You have to pick your stories right. You have to pick your scripts right, and make the right choices. But like, are you going to tell me that The Witcher is, in the lower echelon of adaptations? Like, there's some bad adaptations like out there, from books to TV series to music. Like, there's bad adaptations of everything everywhere. So, I think in terms of coming from a video game is no longer a death sentence.
It is not. Nope.
Yeah.
All
that to say, every Sunday reaction. Last of Us TV show.